Chapter 17 of Potash and Perlmutter, Their Co-Partnership Ventures and Adventures. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mary Ann. Potash and Perlmutter, Their Co-Partnership Ventures and Adventures by Montague Glass. Chapter 17. "Did the Spongers send up them doctors yet?" said Morris, with a faraway look in his bloodshot eyes, as he entered his place of business at 7:30 one morning in March. "Doctors?" Abe repeated. "What are you talking about? Doctors?" Morris snapped his fingers impatiently. "Doctors. Hear me talk. I meant Kersey's." "Listen here, Mars," Abe suggested. "What's the use of you monkeying with business today? Why don't you go home?" "Me? I don't take things so particular, Abe," Morris replied. "Time enough when I got to go home. Then I will go home." "You could do what you please, Mawruss," Abe declared. "We ain't so busy now that you couldn't be spared, you understand. With spring weather like we got it now, Mawruss, we could better sell Arctic overshoes and raincoats as try and get rid of our line already. I tell you the truth, Mawruss, I ain't seen business so schlecht since way before the Spanish War already." "We could always find something to do, Abe," said Morris. "Why don't you tell Miss Cohen to get out them statements which you was talking about?" "That's a good idee, Morris," Abe agreed. "Half the time we don't know where we are at all. Big concerns get out what they call a balancing sheet every day yet, and we are lucky if we do it oncet a year already. How long you think it would take her to finish them up, Morris?" The faraway look returned to Morris's eyes as he replied, "I am waiting for a telephone every minute, Abe," he said. Abe stared indignantly at his partner. Then he took a cigar out of his waistcoat pocket and handed it to Morris. "Go and sit down and smoke this, Mawruss," he said. "Leon Sammet gives it to me in the subway this morning, and if it's anything like them souvenirs which he hands out to his customers, it'll make you forget your troubles, Mawruss. The last time I smoked one I couldn't remember nothing for a week." Morris carefully cut off the end of Abe's gift with a penknife, but when he struck a match the telephone bell rang sharply. Immediately he threw the cigar and the lighted match to the floor and dashed wildly to the firm's office. "Do you got to burn up the place yet?" Abe cried, and after he had extinguished the match with his foot he followed his partner to the office in time to view Morris's coat tails disappearing into the elevator. For 2 minutes he stood still and shook his head slowly. "Miss Cohen," he said at length, "get out them statements which I told it you yesterday, and so soon you got the drawing account finished, let me have it. I don't think Mr. Perlmutter will be back today, so you would have lots of time to do it in." It was almost 2 o'clock before Miss Cohen handed Abe the statement of the firm's drawing account, and Abe thrust it into his breast pocket. "I'm going out for a bite, Miss Cohen," he said. "If anybody wants me, I am over at Hammersmith's, and you could send Jake across for me." He sighed heavily as he raised his umbrella and plunged out into a heavy March downpour. It had been raining steadily for about a week, to the complete discouragement of garment buyers, and Hammersmith's rear café sheltered a proportionately gloomy assemblage of cloak and suit manufacturers. Abe glanced around him when he entered and selected a table at which sat Sol Klinger, who was scowling at a portion of Salisbury steak. "Hello, Sol," Abe cried. "What's the trouble? Ain't the ointermobile running again?" "Do me the favor, Abe," Sol replied, "and cut out them so-called alleged jokes." He turned toward a waiter who was dusting off the tablecloth in front of Abe. "Max," he said, stabbing at the steak with a fork held at arm's length and leaning back in his chair as though to avoid contagion, "what do you call this here mess, anyway?" The waiter examined the dish critically and nodded his head. "Salisbury steak, Mr. Klinger," he muttered. "Very nice to day." "Is that so?" Sol Klinger rejoined. "Well, looky here, Max. If I would got it a dog which I wanted to get rid of bad, y'understand, I would feed him that mess. But me, I ain't ready to die just yet awhile, y'understand, even though business is rotten, so you could take that thing back to the cook and bring me a slice of roast beef, and if you think I got all day to sit here, Max, and fool away my time—" "Right away, Mr. Klinger, right away," Max cried as he hurried off the offending dish, and once more Sol subsided into a melancholy silence. "Don't take it so hard, Sol," Abe said. "We got bad weather like this shown lots of times yet, and none of us busted up. Ain't it?" The weather is nix, Abe, Sol replied. If it's wet today, then it's fine tomorrow, and if a concern ain't buying goods now, all right, they'll buy 'em later on, ain't it? But, Abe, the partner which you got it today, Abe, that's the same partner which you got it tomorrow, and that sucker Klein, Abe, he eats me up with expenses. What that feller does with his money, Abe, I don't know." "Maybe he buys oitermobiles, Sol," Abe suggested. "Supposing I did buy last spring an oitermobile, Abe," Sol retorted. "That's the least. I bet yer that feller Klein spends enough on taxicab rides for customers, and also one or two of 'em which she ain't customers, as he could buy a dozen oitermobiles already. No, Abe, that ain't the point. The first year Klein and me goes as partners together he overdraws me $250. Schon gut. If the feller is a little extravagant, you understand, he's got to make it up next year." Sol paused to investigate the roast beef which Max had brought, and being apparently satisfied, he proceeded with his narrative. "Next year, Abe," he continued, "Klein not only ain't made up the $250, Abe, but he gets into me $300 more. Well, business is good, you understand, and so I don't kick, and that's where I am a great big fool, Abe, because every year since then, Abe, that sucker goes on, until today our balance sheet shows I got 5,000 more invested in the business as Klein got it, and if I would tell him we are no longer equal partners, Abe, he would go right down to Henry D. Feldman, and tomorrow morning there would be a receiver in the store." Sol plunged his fork into the slice of roast beef as though it were Klein himself, and he hacked at it so viciously that the gravy flew in every direction. "Max," he roared, clapping his handkerchief to his face, "what the devil you are bringing me here? Soup?" It was at least 5 minutes before Sol had exhausted his stock of profanity, and when at length the tablecloth was changed, and Abe had ministered to the front of his coat with a napkin dipped in water, Sol ceased to upbraid the waiter and resumed his tirade against his partner. "Yes, Abe," he said, "you are in luck. You got a partner, you understand, which he is a decent, respectable feller. I bet your Mawruss would no more dream of overdrawing you than he would fly in the air." "Wait till he gets to be popular, Sol," Abe replied. "You could take it from me, Sol, Mawruss would be the first one to buy one of them airyplanes, just the same like he bought that oitermobile yet." "That's all right," Sol said. "Mawruss is a good live partner. He sees people round him, good, decent, respectable people, mind you, is buying oitermobiles, Abe, and so he thinks he could buy one too. There ain't no harm in that, Abe, so long as he keeps inside his drawing account. But so soon as one partner starts to take more as the other money out of the business, Abe, then there is right away trouble. But certainly, Abe, Mawruss wouldn't do nothing like that." "Sure not," Abe replied, "because in the first place, Sol, he knows I wouldn't stand for it, and in the second place, Mawruss ain't out to do me, you understand. I will say for Mawruss this, Sol. Of course a partner is a partner, Sol, and the best of partners behaves like cutthroats at times, but Mawruss was always white with me, Sol, and certainly I think a whole lot of that feller. Just to show you, Sol, I got Miss Cohen to fix it up for us a statement of our drawing account which I got it right here in my breast pocket, and I ain't even looked at it at all. So sure am I that everything is A.O.K." "I bet yer you overdrew him yet," Sol observed. "Me? I ain't such a big spender, Sol," Abe replied as he unfolded the statement. "I don't even got to look at the statement, because I know we drew just the same amount. Yes, here it is, Sol. Me, I drew $6,200, and Mawruss drew 6,200 and—" "Well, what do you think for a sucker like that?" "Why, what's the matter, Abe?" Sol cried. Abe's face had grown white and his eyes glittered with anger. "That's a loafer for you," he went on. "That feller actually pocketed $52 of my money." $52, Sol repeated. "What are you making such a fuss about $52 for?" "With you I suppose $52 is nothing, Sol," Abe retorted. "I suppose you could pick up $52 in the street, Sol. What? Wait till I see that robber tomorrow. I'll fix him. Actually, I thought that feller was above such things, Sol." "Don't excite yourself, Abe," Sol began. "I ain't excited, Sol," Abe replied. "I ain't a bit excited. All I would do is I will go back to the store and draw a check for $52. I wouldn't let that beat get ahead of me not for 1 cent, Sol. If I would sit down with my eyes closed for 5 minutes, Sol, that loafer would do me for my shirt. I must be on the job all the time, Sol, otherwise that feller would have me on the streets yet." For a quarter of an hour longer Abe reviled Morris, until Sol was moved to protest. "If I thought that way about my partner, Abe," he said, "I'd go right down and see Feldman and have a dissolution yet." "That's what I will do, Sol," Abe declared. "Why I should tie myself up any longer with a cutthroat like that? I tell you what we'll do, Sol. We'll go over to the store and see what else Miss Cohen found it out. I bet you he rings in a whole lot of items on me with the petty cash while I was away on the road." Together they left Hammersmith's and repaired at once to Potash and Perlmutter's place of business. As they entered the showroom, Miss Cohen emerged from her office with a sheet of paper in her hand. "Mr. Potash," she said, "when you were in Chicago last fall you drew on the firm for $100, and by mistake I credited it to you on your expense account. It ought to have been charged on your drawing account. So that makes your total drawing account $6,300. Abe stopped short and looked at Sol. "What was that you said, Miss Cohen?" he asked. "I said that I made a mistake in that statement and you're overdrawn on Mr. Perlmutter $48, Miss Cohen concluded. "Then hurry up quick, Miss Cohen," Abe cried, "and draw a check on my personal checkbook account on the Kosciuszko Bank to Potash and Perlmutter for $48 and see that it's deposited first thing tomorrow morning." He handed Sol a cigar. "Yes, Sol," he said, "if Morris would find out that I am overdrawn on him $48, he would abuse me like a pickpocket. That feller never gives me credit for being square at all, Sol. I would be afraid for my life if he would get on to that $48. Why, the very first thing you know, Sol, he would be going around telling everybody I was a crook and a cutthroat. That's the kind of feller Morris is, Sol. I could treat him always like a gentleman, Sol, and if the smallest little thing happened to us, sucker is the least what he would call me." At this juncture the green glazed doors leading to the hall burst open and Morris himself leaped into the showroom. His necktie was perched rakishly underneath his right ear and his collar was of the moisture and consistency of a used wash rag. His clothes were dripping, for he carried no umbrella, and his hair hung in damp strands over his forehead. Nevertheless, he was grinning broadly, as without a word he ran up to Abe and seized his hand. For 2 minutes Morris shook it up and down and then collapsed into the nearest chair. "Well, Mawruss," Abe cried, "what's the matter? Couldn't you say nothing? What did you come downtown again for? You should have stayed uptown with Minnie." "'Sall right, Abe," Morris gasped. "'Sall over, too. The doctor says instead I should be making a nuisance of myself uptown, I would be better off in the store here. He was there before I could get home." "Who was there?" Abe asked. "The doctor?" "Not the doctor," Morris went on. "The boy was there. Minnie is doing fine. The doctor said everything would be all right." "That's good. That's good," Abe murmured. "You oughter see him, Abe. He weighed 10 pounds," Morris continued. "I bet yer he could holler too, like an auctioneer already. Minnie says also I shouldn't forget to tell you what we agreed upon." "What we agreed upon?" Abe repeated. "Why, we ain't agreed upon nothing, so far what I hear, Mawruss. What do you mean, what we agreed upon?" "Not you and me, Abe," Morris cried. "Her and me. We agreed that if it was a boy we'd call him Abraham P. Perlmutter already." He slapped Abe on the back and laughed uproariously, while Abe looked guilty and blushed deep crimson. "Abraham Potash Perlmutter," Morris reiterated. "That's a fine name, Sol." It was now Sol's turn to take Morris's hand. He squeezed it hard. "I congratulate you for the boy and for the name both," he said. Once more Abe seized his partner's hand and shook it rhythmically up and down as though it were a patent exerciser. "Mawruss," he said, "this is certainly something which I didn't expect at all. And all I could say is that I got to tell you you would never be sorry for it. Just a few minutes since in Hammersmith's I was telling Sol I got a partner which it is a credit and an honor for a feller to know. He could always trust such a partner to do what is right and square, and also, Mawruss, Miss Cohen," he broke off suddenly, "you should draw right away another check in my personal book for $100. "To whose order?" Miss Cohen asked. Abe cleared his throat and blinked away a slight moisture before replying. "Make it to the order of Abraham P. Perlmutter," he said, "and we will deposit it in a savings bank, Mawruss, and when he comes 21 years old, Mawruss, we will draw it out with anything else what you put in there for him, Mawruss, and we will deposit it in our own bank to the credit of Potash, Perlmutter and Son." Sol Klinger's face spread into an amiable grin. You could put me down $10 on that savings bank account too, boys," he said, as he reached for his hat. "I've got to be going now." "Don't you forget you should tell Klein it's a boy," Morris called to him. "I won't forget," Sol replied. "Klein'll be glad to hear it. You know, Mawruss, Klein ain't such a grouch as most people think he is. In fact, taking him all around, Klein is a pretty decent feller." As he turned to leave his eye met Abe's and both of them smiled guiltily. "After all, Abe," Sol continued, "it ain't what partners says about each other, Abe, but how they acts what counts. Ain't it?" Abe nodded emphatically. "An old saying but a true one," Morris declared. "Actions talk louder than words." End of chapter 17 and end of Potash and Perlmutter, their co-partnership ventures and adventures by Montague Glass.